Hello! In this video, we will be working on making inferences in informational text. Let's begin by reviewing what it means to make an inference. When you make an inference, you are being a reading detective. Detectives take clues that they find, along with what they already know, to make a good guess about something. That's exactly what you do when you make an inference in your reading. Oftentimes, an author doesn't tell you everything in a text. The author counts on you as a reader to make good inferences. The author counts on you to use your background knowledge, which is everything you already know, plus clues from the text to make a good conclusion or a good judgment about something in the story. When you do that, you're making an inference. You can infer when you're walking home and see balloons and streamers up at a house that there must be a party going on at that house. Now, no one told you there was a party going on, but because in the past you've seen balloons and streamers when there's a party, you can infer or make a good guess that there's a party going on in this house. That's what you should do when you're reading. Use what you know to make a good guess about the text. Also, you come with a lot of your own experiences to 6th grade. Maybe you're a really good skateboarder. Maybe you're not such a great skateboarder, but you've tried skateboarding in the past. Use that knowledge to help you when you're reading about skateboarding. Let's take a look at making an inference in an informational passage. We know that writers don't always tell us exactly what's on their minds. Sometimes we have to make a reasonable conclusion about what we think the writer thinks. A reasonable conclusion, which is based on both the evidence in the text and our prior knowledge, is called an inference. Let's read this passage about a giant squid. For many years, both sailors and scientists suspected that a creature they called the giant squid lived in the ocean depths. Over the years, the evidence mounted, and in 2012 came solid proof. They filmed giant squids swimming in the ocean. Before the 2012 video, nobody had answers to several significant questions about giant squids. How did they act in the wild? Were they hunters? Or did they just float in the water, eating what came their way? What purpose did their huge eyes serve? Thanks to the video, we have some answers. We know that the squid is a hunter that uses its large eyes to spot prey and avoid being eaten. But many fascinating mysteries about these creatures still need solving. Will this important research continue? The writer does not openly state whether she wants the research to continue, but she does drop plenty of hints. We're going to reread this passage, and this time I want us to underline words that suggest what she thinks. Let me get my pen ready to underline. I'm actually going to highlight. So we're looking for words that will give us hints about whether this author thinks the research should continue. For many years, both sailors and scientists suspected that a creature they called the giant squid lived in the ocean depths. Over the years, the evidence mounted, and in 2012 came solid proof. They filmed giant squids swimming in the ocean. Before the 2012 video, nobody had answers to several significant questions about giant squids. I'm going to underline that because I think that helps us make a good inference. How did they act in the wild? Were they hunters, or did they just float in the water, eating what came their way? What purpose did their huge eyes serve? Thanks to the videos, we have some answers. We know that the squid is a hunter that uses its large eyes to spot prey and avoid being eaten. But many fascinating mysteries about this creature still need solving. Will this important research continue? I'm going to underline these last two sentences because I think this also helps us make a good inference about whether or not we think the writer thinks the scientist should keep researching giant squid. We can also make a chart to help us make an inference. We know when we make an inference, we take what we know, our background experience, plus clues from the text to make a good inference. So let's think about this. Our inference, they asked us to make an inference about, does the writer think scientists should keep researching giant squid? Well, we know that a person with positive feelings about a type of work would want it to continue. If you want something to keep going, you're going to say good things about it. So let's take a look at what the text says. That's what we were underlining as we were rereading. The text says, remember textual evidence, quotation marks to show I took these words right from the text. Before the 2012 video, nobody had answers to several significant questions about giant squid. So this helps me because the writer is saying that there were lots of questions with no answers before the research began. Another piece of textual evidence that helps make an inference is when the writer says, but many fascinating mysteries about these creatures still need solving. So again, the quotation mark said I took this right from the text, and the writer is saying that there were a lot of questions without answers, and now we have some answers, but many fascinating mysteries about these creatures still need solving. Notice the word fascinating. He uses the word fascinating to describe these giant squid mysteries. Fascinating has a positive feeling to it. Finally, look at this last piece of textual evidence. He says, will this important research continue? He uses the word important. That tells me that he thinks the research being done about giant squids is pretty important. When I look up at this first piece of textual evidence, I also notice that he said nobody had answers to several significant questions about giant squids. So this tells me that the writer thinks the questions were pretty important questions, and he was fascinated by the idea of the giant squid. So when I take what I know, that if someone's sharing positive feelings about a type of work, they would want it to continue. And my clues in the text show me this person is positive about giant squid. He uses words such as fascinating, important, significant to describe this work. Then I can infer that the author thinks that scientists should keep researching the giant squid. Notice, even though it didn't say this directly in the text, we could infer this based on what we knew plus what we read. That's being a good reading detective.